Who is a historian? The guardians of humanity's past. Opening hook. Imagine standing before a broken clay pot, half buried in the earth, silent for centuries. Or opening an ancient chest and finding a faded letter, written by hands long gone, carrying the voice of someone who lived in another age. At first glance, these objects may seem ordinary. But in the right hands, they become windows into forgotten worlds. That is the power of history. And the people who unlock those words are historians. Historians take fragments of the past and breathe meaning into them. They help us hear the voices of our ancestors, understand the rise and fall of civilizations, and discover how the past still lives within us today. But who exactly is a historian? What do they really do? And why does their work matter so deeply? Welcome back to Afrocentric View of History. In today's lesson, we will step into the world of historians and uncover the remarkable work they do to preserve humanity's memory. Who is a historian? A historian is a person who studies, researches, interprets, and writes about the past using evidence. But a historian is far more than someone who remembers dates and names. A historian is a seeker of truth. A historian asks, what happened? Why did it happen? Who was involved? What evidence remains? And what can we learn from it today? Historians study how people lived, how societies grew, how kingdoms flourished, why empires collapsed, and how the choices of the past continue to shape the present. Think of a historian as a detective of time. Instead of solving crimes in the present, historians investigate mysteries from the past. They gather clues from documents, artifacts, oral traditions, monuments, photographs, maps, inscriptions, and archaeological discoveries. Their mission is not to invent stories, but to uncover the most truthful account possible based on the evidence available. What does a historian do? The work of a historian is a journey of patience, curiosity, and careful thought. First, asking questions. Every great historical discovery begins with a question. Why did a kingdom become powerful? What caused a great civilization to decline? How did people live centuries ago? What evidence supports this story? What voices have been forgotten? Good history begins when someone dares to ask, what really happened? Second, collecting evidence. Historians gather information from many different sources, including primary sources, secondary sources, tertiary sources, archaeological discoveries, oral traditions, ancient manuscripts, government records, maps, photographs, coins, pottery, and monuments. Each source is like a piece of a larger puzzle. No single source tells the whole story. But when many pieces are brought together, the picture of the past begins to emerge. Third, evaluating sources. Not every source speaks with the same level of truth. Historians must examine each source carefully and ask, who created this source? When was it created? Why was it created? Was the writer trying to persuade, inform, or deceive? Is there bias in the account? Does other evidence support this claim? These questions help historians separate fact from exaggeration, memory from myth, and truth from distortion. Another thing historian does is comparing different sources. Historians rarely depend on one source alone. Instead, they compare information from multiple sources to see where they agree and where they differ. When different kinds of evidence point to the same conclusion, historians can be more confident in their findings. Lastly, writing and sharing their findings. Once the evidence has been studied and interpreted, historians share their findings with the world. They do this through books, research papers, documentaries, museums, lectures, classrooms, and digital platforms. But historians do more than tell us what happened. They explain why it happened, how it happened, and why it still matters. In this way, historians do not merely preserve the past, they help bring it to life. Qualities of a good historian. A good historian must possess more than knowledge. They must also possess character. 1. Honesty. A historian must be loyal to the evidence, even when the truth is uncomfortable or unpopular. 2. Curiosity. Great historians never stop asking questions. They want to know more, dig deeper, and understand better. 3. Patience. Historical research is not rushed work. It may take months or even years to uncover the truth. 4. Critical thinking. historians must think carefully, weigh evidence, and avoid jumping to conclusions. 5. Open-mindedness. As new discoveries emerge, historians must be willing to change their views if the evidence demands it. These qualities make a historian not just skilled, but trustworthy. Challenges historians face. Studying history is a noble task, but it is not easy. Sometimes records have been lost to war, fire, neglect, or time itself. Sometimes ancient languages remain difficult to translate. Sometimes sources disagree with one another. And sometimes the past was never written down at all, but preserved in memory, song, proverb, and oral tradition. This means historians must work like careful builders, piecing together fragments from many directions. They must compare oral traditions with archaeology, linguistics, written records, and material evidence. These challenges make historical research demanding, but also deeply exciting. Because every discovery brings us one step closer to the truth. Historians and the Afrocentric perspective. From an Afrocentric perspective, historians seek to understand Africa's past through the widest and fairest range of evidence possible. For too long, some stories about Africa were told mainly through the eyes of outsiders, while African voices, oral traditions, and local knowledge were overlooked or undervalued. Today, historians are working to correct that imbalance. They combine archaeological discoveries, indigenous knowledge, ancient manuscripts, linguistic studies, oral traditions, and written records from Africa and beyond to build a fuller picture of the continent's past. An Afrocentric approach does not reject outside evidence. Instead, it insists that African experiences, African voices, and African sources must stand proudly alongside all other forms of evidence. This is not just about history. It is about dignity. It is about truth. It is about ensuring that Africa's past is told with depth, respect, and balance. Why historians matter. Without historians, much of humanity's story would fade into silence. Their work preserves memory. Their work protects heritage. Their work helps us understand where we came from, who we are, and where we may be going. Historians remind us that every society has a story. Every people has a past. Every civilization leaves behind lessons for the future. By studying history with care and honesty, historians help us make wiser choices, avoid repeating mistakes, and appreciate the richness of human experience. In conclusion, today, we have discovered that historians are much more than storytellers. They are investigators of truth. They are guardians of memory. They are interpreters of evidence. They are teachers of humanity. Through questions, research, comparison, and reflection, historians help us recover the voices of the past and understand the world more deeply. In our next episode, we will explore another fascinating question. How can we access different sources of history? If this lesson inspired you, please like this video, subscribe to Afrocentric View of History, and share it with others who love learning about the past. Thank you for watching.